Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, December 1st. It's actually a pretty big week, which is, I think, pretty typical for this time of year. It's the week after Record Store Day, Black Friday, and the list for last week is always pretty small. So, like, either the week before or the week after Black Friday always tends to be a big release week. Got about 600 albums coming out this Friday. I got 14 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that we put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, it's a huge week for new releases. Around 600 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 14 on the show today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a link down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up this week. This really could have been an even longer video. I think there's a lot of really great stuff coming out this week. What I'm going to do is, if you're unable to find any of these albums in your local stores, go down in the comment section down below. I'll have an expanded list of at least 30 or 40 albums that I think are really great that are coming out this week. The first two albums are ones that have been around for a long time, but have never been available on vinyl until this week. The first one is Collective Soul, 7-Year Itch, Greatest Hits 1994 to 2001. Of course, released back in 2001, it's a Greatest Hits compilation covering the beginning part of the band's career, which I think is the best part of Collective Soul's career. It's going to run you about $24 online. This has 14 tracks on there. 2 of them are previously unreleased. Well, they were previously unreleased in 2001. Of course, they've been around for 20 plus years now. Had this on CD back in the day. I absolutely love this Greatest Hits compilation. I think what makes this compilation so good is, of course, it has all their best known stuff on there, but also has some, I don't want to say deeper cuts, but songs that if you aren't a big Collective Soul fan, you probably haven't heard in a really, really long time, if ever. And some of those tracks I think are actually better than some of the bigger tracks that the band has released. Like I said, great compilation, $24. It's definitely one I'll grab this week. And then you've also got No Doubt Beacon Street Collection. This was released back in 1995 as their second studio album. It's going to run you about $28 online. This was, like I said, same thing as Collective Soul. It's never been available on vinyl before. This was released, initially it was only on cassette and CD. The band self-produced this. They self-released this album. This was the album that really kind of got the attention of, I think it was Interscope that ended up signing them. And, it sold really well when they first released it. And this is all stuff that they were living on Beacon Street in Anaheim, California, built this in-home studio in their garage, and that's what they recorded all this music on. And, it's fantastic. Interscope would end up reissuing this. So after Tragic Kingdom was released, of course, No Doubt was huge at that time. So Interscope went back and re-released Beacon Street. Same thing with Collective Soul. It's something I had on CD back in the day. Absolutely loved a lot of these tracks. It's a little different. If you're expecting more stuff like Tragic Kingdom and Return to Saturn and some of the other stuff that No Doubt did in their career, this is it's a little different than that kind of stuff. It's their earlier music was definitely more ska centric. Obviously they did a lot of that on Tragic Kingdom also, but it had a different kind of feel that their early music did. You also got the expanded tour edition of Trustfall by Pink coming out this week. So Trustfall was released back in February. It was Pink's 9th studio album. This is a 2 LP release. It's on pink and purple vinyl. It's going to run you about $48 online. So this expanded edition of Trustfall, first off, it's got 3 additional bonus tracks on here, and then it also has 6 live tracks. Also includes a great version of Nothing Compares to You on here. She did a really great job with this album. I think this is kind of a return to form album for Pink. And she blends so many different genres in her music. You've got some some pop dance stuff on here. You've got some country on here. You got some rock stuff on here. The Lumineers are on this album. You got the First Aid Kit was on here. Chris Stapleton was on here. Like I said, just a really good album. Is it her best album? I don't think so, but I don't think it's anywhere close to being her worst album. So you got that coming out this week, and then you got Peter Gabriel I.O. coming out. This is a new album, his 10th studio album. It's a 2 LP release. Going to run about $40 online. This is his first album of all original material since 2002. I hadn't realized it had been that long since Peter Gabriel had released anything. And the thing I guess the issue I have with new music is something that Peter Gabriel has done to the 10th degree on this album, is I have an issue with artists releasing a bunch of singles before the album has been released. And that's exactly what Peter Gabriel has done. By the time this album comes out this week, I think all of the songs will have been released as singles. There's only 12 songs on here. I think all 12 of them have been released, or at least 11 of the 12 have been. So what Peter Gabriel has done is every single month, when there's a full moon that month, he releases a single. So it's kind of an interesting way to go about an album release. But in typical Peter Gabriel fashion, he's known for really kind of pushing the boundaries when it comes to music. This album has 2 different mixes. And he's released singles off of each one of the mixes. So I guess total there's 24 songs, and 12 of them, or 11 or 12 of them, will be released by the time this album comes out. So there's a bright side mix, and then there's a dark side mix. They're 2 separate mixes. They're both going to be available on vinyl. Each one is going to run you about $40 online. I think it's going to be an interesting release. I'll definitely have to stream it. I'll probably, if I like one over the other, I might grab one on vinyl. I don't really see myself picking up both of them, though. If you're into punk music, there's a really cool split 10-inch that's coming out this week. This is Get Dead, Codefendants. This was released a couple of weeks ago, November 16th. I think when it was first released, it was released on a couple of different color variants. I think this is the standard black one that's getting a wider release this week. It's going to run you about $18 online. Really cool collaboration. If you're unfamiliar with Codefendants, their debut album that came out earlier this year is probably one of my favorite albums of the year. And of course, Get Dead, in my opinion, has been releasing some of the best punk music of probably the last decade. I love a lot of the stuff that they've done over the last couple of years. 2 great bands doing music from the other band. You got Get Dead doing 2 songs by Codefendants, and then you got Codefendants doing 2 songs by Get Dead. Really cool. I love seeing how bands kind of reinterpret the music from the other band. So that's definitely one I'm going to grab this week. And then you got Nelly Furtado, Loose, being reissued. First released back in 2006. It was their 3rd studio album. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to run you about $30 online. I think it's one of the better pop albums of the early to mid part of the 2000s. It was a huge album when it came out. It hit number 1 on the Billboard charts. It would go on to sell, 10 million copies. You had a couple of big tracks on here. You had Promiscuous and Say It Right were the 2 like huge singles that really helped propel that album. It's a great album, though. I think Timbaland was the producer on it. I think he was also featured on a couple of tracks. It's like I said, if you haven't heard that one in a while, I think it's definitely one to go back and check out. It's I don't have a copy of it, so definitely I'll grab a copy of that this week. There's a great jazz album that's coming out this week. This is Tommy Flanagan and the Cats. First released back in 1959. It's part of the Kraft Recordings Original Jazz Classic series. And I've loved everything that they released off of this series so far. It's definitely one I'm going to grab this week. I'm actually unfamiliar with this album. It's got a bunch of great reviews, though. It's going to run you about $39 online. Of course, you got Tommy Flanagan on here. You also got John Coltrane, Kenny Burrell, Idris Suleiman. And so this album, even though I think it's titled actually as John Coltrane, Tommy Flanagan, Idris Suleiman, and Kenny Burrell, the Cats. This is really a Tommy Flanagan album because he penned all the songs on here. I think there's one song that he didn't write on this album. And like I said, one I'm definitely looking forward to grabbing this week. Mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. It's pressed at RTI. This thing's going to sound absolutely fantastic. And then I guess on the polar opposite spectrum of music goes, you also got Bad Brains' self-titled debut album being reissued this week. First released back in 1982. It's going to run you about $23 online. This is on banana peel vinyl. I'm assuming it's just a yellow. I haven't seen a mock-up of it online. But it's one of the best and kind of most influential punk albums of the early part of the 80s. A really interesting thing about their debut album is not only would this album go on to influence a bunch of punk music in the 80s, it also influenced a lot of hardcore music in the 80s also. It was really kind of an interesting album. As a big punk fan, I understand why a lot of people aren't big fans of Bad Brains. They can, a lot of people can either love them or hate them. Their debut album, their first couple of albums, I think are really great. They kind of lost me the later part of the 80s, early part of the 90s. But this is definitely a great one to grab if you don't have it in your collection. There's a great reissue that's coming out this week that I've been looking forward to for a while now. I don't have a copy of it. I'll definitely grab one this week. This is Sheryl Crow, Tuesday Night Music Club. First released back in 1993. It was her debut album. There's 2 different versions of this available online. I saw a black version, and there's also a blue version. It's going to run you about $23 to $25 online. It's all newly remastered by Bernie Grumman. I'm sure this is going to sound fantastic. It was an absolutely massive album when it was first released. Go on to sell over 12 million copies. And I think it was really this album and probably Fumbling Towards Ecstasy by Sarah McLachlan that really opened the door in the middle part of the 90s for other female musicians, really kind of pushed labels to go out and discover more female artists. And like I said, it's just a great album. It's definitely one I'm going to grab this week. Then you also got the Outfield Play Deep getting reissued. First released back in 1985. It was their debut album. This is a music on vinyl release, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's also going to be a little more limited also. It's going to run you about $40 online. There's only 3,000 copies of this that were pressed. It's coming out on purple vinyl. It's a great album, and it's one that Your Love was the one big track off this. And people often look at the Outfield as one of those one-hit wonder bands. This is an album, though, I swear if you go listen to this, there's so many other great tracks on this album other than just that one song. And, I know a lot of people don't like paying $40 for an album, and I totally get that, but Music on Vinyl does a great job with their pressings. I'm sure this thing's going to sound fantastic. It's going to look cool, do a great job with the presentation. But like I said, it's a little more limited. And also, I guess I should add that Music on Vinyl releases tend to take a little bit longer to reach the U.S. They're pressed over in Europe. They tend to come out like that week in Europe, and then there's only like a week or so after the fact that it shows up here in the U.S. So if you do pre-order this from website online, expect there to might possibly be like a week delay in it. Another huge album that's getting reissued this week is Moondance by Van Morrison. First released back in 1970, it was his third studio album. This is a 3 LP deluxe edition. It's going to run you about $40 online. So this was very much like a return to a straightforward blues rock sound for Van Morrison. When he released his second album, Astro Weeks, it had more of like this folk kind of country kind of psychedelic kind of vibe to some of the music on there. It was very different than his debut album. So Moondance is more along the lines musically of his debut album, which his debut album had Brown Eyed Girl on it. It's like the big track that everyone knows from Van Morrison. But this is all newly remixed by Steven Wilson. The extra 2 LPs has a bunch of alternate mixes on here, alternate takes, outtakes, demos. It's if you're a Van Morrison fan, it might be a cool one to grab. I'm gonna wait and see if I can stream some of the extras on this album before I decide to grab a copy. Because you can grab a 1 LP release of this for a lot less than the $40 for this one. And then you also got Weezer Seasons Winter coming out this week. This was released back in 2022. It was the 4th and final EP from the Seasons project from Weezer. It's going to run you about $22 online. I think the project overall was very interesting. And each one of the seasons had its own vibe, its own very distinct vibe to the music, while still sounding like very much like a Weezer album. I think Winter is, of the 4 EPs, I think Winter's probably grown on me the most out of the 4, and it's probably one of my, if I had to pick one as my favorite, it's probably my favorite EP of the series. I'm going to wait off and grabbing any of them on vinyl. I'm sure they're going to do a seasons package eventually with all 4 of the EPs in there. There's also an indie exclusive that's going to be on Milky Clear vinyl. It's going to run you about $22 online, like I said, and it's a good one to at least go and stream and check out the project as an entire release. The next album is one that I guess I never really understood all the hate that it gets. Is it this band's best album? Absolutely not. Is it their worst album? Not even close. I think it falls, somewhere in between. But this is Duran Duran Pop Trash, released back in 2000. It was their 10th studio album. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to run you about $33 online. I get it. It received a bunch of really mixed reviews when it came out. I remember one reviewer said it was, mediocre Britpop is what they said it was. MTV at the time even said it was definitely pop trash. So, I think some of those reviews really kind of colored some people's opinions of this album. Like I said, it's not their best album. There is some really good tracks on this album, though. I think it's definitely one that's worth going back and revisiting if you haven't listened to it in a long time. And then this also includes 2 bonus tracks on here. So, like I said, go back and stream it if you haven't heard it in a while. It's not as bad, I think, as a lot of the reviews out there say it is. And then the last one on my list is Five Finger Death Punch, The Wrong Side of Heaven, The Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 1 and 2. These were both released back in 2013. It was their 4th and 5th studio albums. This is a 6 LP release. So it's on, there's 2 LPs are silver, 2 LPs are gold, and 2 LPs are black in the 6 LP release. 10th anniversary release. It's going to run you $125 online. This also includes in this box that comes in a really nice slip case. Looks like it's a pretty good release if you're a Five Finger Death Punch fan. But this also includes Purgatory Tales from the Pit, which is an unreleased live album also. So you're getting some other stuff in there that hasn't been readily available before, and it might be a good one to check out. To be completely honest, I think I've listened to probably 3 or 4 Five Finger Death Punch songs over the years. So they're one of those bands I definitely need to go back through and check out their collection. Also, I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up this week. I think it's going to be a great week for music. Of course, I'm going to grab that Collect a Soul. I'll grab that Sheryl Crow. Probably get that Get Dead split. I'll probably grab that jazz album also. A lot of really great stuff. Coming out of Record Store Day Black Friday, though, I overspent a little bit on Record Store Day, so I need to kind of trim back on some of my spending. So we'll see what I grab this week, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.